I didn't realize before coming that you can have an actual intimate relationship with Jesus.
We ask God for forgiveness, we forgive other people, but we never forgive ourselves, so we never step into that freedom.
I normalized a lot of things that I viewed, whether it be in relationships or friendships or, things that happened to me or how I'd act. I normalized it because that's all I knew growing up.
We're past the days of the prophets being the only voice of God and speaking to us.
Welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown. Today we're going to break down our lives and how KDC changed our lives. And we're going to share a couple testimonies that will probably help you. I know it helped a lot of people in our classes just sharing.
So I think we're going to talk on our perspectives when we entered.
Yeah.
So my perspective when I got here, I wasn't really serving God before. I mean, I was slowly cutting drinking out of my life and other things, but I still wasn't serving him, or my mindset wasn't, I want to serve God. It was more like, I'm tired of living the life that I'm living and I want to be saved. My perception of salvation was completely wrong. But coming in, I had almost not a hatred. I disliked religion. I didn't like religion. So coming in, I was like, this is perfect for me. There's no religion here. I don't like religion. And then slowly but surely, I started realizing just how religious I was and how religious my mindset was. And it took a while for that to break off. I mean, there's still a lot of things where I see things religiously and I'm like, man, I really want to break this off, God. And it's a process. It really is. But my perspective was, I didn't view God as a good father. I didn't understand sonship. I didn't understand my identity or us being royalty, grace. I had almost no idea what grace even was. It was we're saved by grace. And I thought grace just meant, he had mercy on us, but it's there's so much more to it. So that was kind of my perspective coming in, where I didn't think I was religious, but in reality I was very religious.
100%. I think I would agree with you. My perspective is I think a month before coming to Bible college, I still partied. And my perspective, I thought I knew everything. And I was really prideful, but at the same time, I was really scared and fearful of God because I didn't know who he was. My whole life, people are God punishes. When something bad would happen, I would hear oh, that's because God's teaching you a lesson, this and that. So my whole life I thought whenever something bad happened, that's God, he's teaching me a lesson and to be better and this stuff. But in reality, it's just life. And my own bad mistakes and decisions caused the problems in my life, and I would blame it instead of even blaming it on the devil. I'll blame it on God. Oh, God's just teaching me a lesson, And then when I came here and I was oh my gosh, I don't even know, I don't know anything. And I've been blaming the wrong person. And when there is actually no blame at all to anybody, if we blame the devil, we give him credit for things he'd even do, and we enable him to do more stuff in our life. We open that door to him, you'd be driving and then your check engine light comes on because you haven't changed your oil all year, you're the devil, and it's actually no, you did that. Or you have a flat tire, you're the devil's getting me out today, but it's just life, a lot of things that I did in my life, I would either blame at the devil or God because just regular life, and after being here for almost 2 years, I'm man, looking back now, I'm so happy that I came here because my mindset is so different, and I take responsibility for my own actions. If I mess up, that's on me, and God's here to teach me and guide me along the ways.
Mine is so different. So coming in, it was weird, honestly. I had this desire to know who God was, who Jesus was. I had no idea, but I knew that they existed now at this point, and I had a hunger, but I was still very in the world. I came honestly hungover, I'm pretty sure. I was so hungover the first day, and I remember coming and I was I don't even know how to talk to Christians.
Yeah.
What do you talk to these people about? How do you act? I was so worried, and I was man, before coming, I knew I had issues. I was I have these issues. But then coming, I was wow, I'm really broken. It was a lot of realization, and it was kind of, this is bad. I don't know if this is bad to say. It was almost comforting when we started being vulnerable and opening up, and I realized everybody else is just as broken. And I was like, oh, dope. Like, they're just as messed up as me, you know? Like, I'm not alone in this, because it was crazy. Like, looking back, the enemy definitely at the time was putting me in a box of like, you're the only one, you know, you're the only one that's broken, you're the only one still struggling with these things. And so I was very closed off coming in, honestly. Like, it was weird, because it was like half of me, like, I wanted to be open, and I had this desire, but the rest of me was so closed off to people. You know, I had a lot of like trust issues. I kind of kept people at a distance because I wasn't sure how to navigate between that. And so after being here, definitely, I think it was a lot of like healing, and he had to really, and when I'm saying he, I mean like Jesus had to really redefine like friendships for me and my perspective on a lot of things, because I remember also coming, I had never been in an environment where people said I love you like every day. You know, I remember coming, and within the first day people are like, love you, and I'm like, what? Like,
why?
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no you don't. Like, you know, I didn't understand. So yeah, it was quite a process. Like, and he's done honestly such amazing work in me throughout this year. I'm completely different.
180.
Yeah, it's insane.
360. No.
But yeah, you know, oh, thanks. And we're back. No, yeah. So I came in very standoffish, very, you know, skeptical. Oh my goodness. Like, I questioned everything, very, very skeptical, and at a distance. And honestly, I think it was good, but I also think, you know, it was bad. I wish I wasn't as standoffish, but I think it was good that I did kind of question a lot, because I took it very real, and I was like, God, like, if this is not you, like, I don't want it. I'm not gonna fake anything. Like, you have to move me. If I'm gonna move, I'm gonna move. If I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna fall, but only if you do it, you know?
So good.
So
what would you say is the biggest thing you would take away from this year?
Biggest thing would be, I didn't realize before coming that you can have an actual intimate relationship with Jesus. Like, you can literally experience him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, to an extent where like before coming, nobody really talked about the fruits of the Spirit or the gifts of the Spirit, or even, you know, simply the fact that he can talk to us, that he can show me things, that I can like step into that. I can literally physically feel him, like the glory of God, the fire of God. Like, never in my life did I know, you know, like, it's just insane. So coming out of this year, it became real for me. You know, before it was like head knowledge, now it's like true understanding, exactly, revelation of like, you can literally walk and touch and feel Jesus.
Yeah,
you know, like, I didn't know that before.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because I also grew up where I didn't realize, like, we're past the days of the prophets being the only voice of God and speaking to us. I was so used to, like, if I needed a word, it had to be through prophecy. If God wanted to speak to me, it had to be through prophecy, and the rest of it was just me talking to God and just, God, please do this, God, please do that. But coming here, I started realizing, hey, hold up. God, he wants to talk to you just probably more than you want to talk to him. Okay. It's a relationship, fellowship, communion. It talks about like communion with the Holy Spirit, right? It's supposed to be two-way. Fellowship and friendships and relationships, they're supposed to be two-way. Yeah. If you're just talking one way to God, is that a relationship? Is that a friendship? Yeah. Do you actually have intimacy with God if you're just telling him what you think, what you're experiencing, and not letting him talk back? I forgot who said this, but I remember I was talking to somebody, and they're like, if your whole prayer life is talking to God and never letting him talk to you, like, you're literally crippling yourself in the prayer room, because the secret room, it's not just you talking to God. It talks about him already knowing our desires, what we need, where we should go, like all these things. If it's just us repeating what he already knows back to him, there's not change in our lives. That's why a lot of people get stuck, because they're praying for things God already knows that they need, and he's waiting for them to be quiet and listen and learn to talk to the Holy Spirit, or I guess hear his voice, because he's constantly talking to us. We just don't recognize him.
Yeah.
And once we allow him to start talking to us, that's when changes start happening, because we start getting revelations. We start gaining understanding into our situations. Why is this happening? Like even how you were saying in the beginning, where you thought everything was, oh, God's doing this, God's punishing me.
Yeah.
And then when you came here, you realized a lot of things we bring on ourselves, but there's still a lesson to be learned in a lot of things. And when you have fellowship with him, when you're going through something, you can always be like, God, what did I do wrong? Or in a sense, what can I take from this? Because he turns everything evil for good.
Yeah.
And he can speak into your situation like, you're going through this because of this or because of that. And a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with what God is like trying to punish you for, but more things that we have allowed into our lives, and through understanding and fellowship, he can guide us out of that.
Yeah, and I like totally agree with your prayer. I remember when I used to pray in my secret place, I was like, God, I need this, God, I need that, you know, and like I'm crying out like, why don't I see this in my life? And then I just leave it at that. I wouldn't wait for him to like speak back to me, and then I'm like complaining, I'm like, God, I don't see God moving in my life. And like, but in fact, after we voice whatever we need to voice, and like you said, God already knows our desires of our hearts, you know, like we wait and we listen to him, and he's going to teach us like, oh, you want to grow in finances, let me show you how to do it. You know, and that's where he speaks back, and he teaches us like, go to this person, talk to this person, here's an open door right here, you know. But going back to the biggest takeaway of this year, I feel like for me, probably is family. I remember this year, and even like, so I'm a Bible school student for 2 years now. And I remember, like, after the end of the year, I asked people, like, what did you think of me when you first met me? And they're like, oh, you're so standoffish. Like, I could not approach you. You're so mean, this and that. You're, like, bratty and all this. And because, like, growing up, I was really distant. Like, my family was distant with each other. We never voiced, like, our visions.
He looks at me, that's you this year.
Yeah, but, like, we never voiced any, like, of our dreams and hopes. We only voiced the stuff that was bad in our lives. You know, like, oh, we have this problem, you know? So that's all we knew.
Yeah.
And, like, when I came here, like, I didn't let myself get close to anybody. I like, closed my heart to everything. And then coming back for the second year, I really felt like God was like, you need to open your heart and root yourself in this community, you know? And that was, like, a struggle for me because I didn't even know what family was, you know? Like, the first week of school, everyone's honoring each other. I'm like, man, I don't even know how to do that. Like, it was so hard for me. And, like, loving and, like, being vulnerable with people, like, that sucks. I remember we had people over at my house one time, and, like, they were dancing, and one of the girls in my house was like, Katya, like, and I was just sitting on the couch. She's like, Katya, like, this is how you become vulnerable. This is how you make family, you know? And something inside of me was, like, got really mad, and I'm like, God, like, what is this? And he's like, you need to learn how to be vulnerable. You need to learn. And he brings those people in my life so they can, like, help me, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember some of our teachers, they started teaching us, like, you need to, even Andre Shapovalov said this, like, 2 weeks ago. He's like, when we voice our dreams, it brings form to it, you know? And, like, God can start using it. And I was like, man, like, I need to learn how to be vulnerable and voice my dreams and my desires so God can actually use those physical words and bring them to life, you know? And when I, like, voice my concerns and desires or whatever I'm struggling with, I have community and I have people who are gonna come, like, oh, you're struggling financially? Here's $100. Oh, you need, like, a ride somewhere? Here, I'll take you, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, I really had to learn, like, what family is and, like, how to even be family, honor each other, love on each other, like, and it's not, like, all sunshines and rainbows, you know? It's hard sometimes, like, you have a problem with each other and you learn how to confront each other, you know? Like, if I did something wrong, confront me. I'm going to confront you too. I give you permission, you know? So family was a really big one. And it's, like, I don't think I'm done learning in that, like, because my whole life I was, like, raised up in, like, a broken family or whatever. So, like, now I have, like, that whole time to fix it, you know, fix all the emptiness inside me, fill all the holes, you know, and, like, all the questions of not knowing how to do it and what to do it. And yeah, so family was a big one for me.
So I don't think I answered that question. So yeah, sorry. No, it's fine. It's fine. That was kind of my fault because I forgot the question. So I kind of started going off what she said. And then, yeah, anyways. So my biggest takeaway, everything. No, I'm kidding. I probably sonship and identity for me was the biggest thing. Like seeing him as a good father. Because I did grow up where, like, there was times in my life where I not only thought God was punishing me for making mistakes, but I asked him, like, hey, God, I don't want to do this, so please punish me every time I do this. That way I would stop. But in reality, it's like, that's not God punishing you. That's literally you opening the door for the devil to hurt you and throw things into your life. And it never helps. Like, you think like, oh, getting punished would help and you'd stop it. But no, that's like when your parents spank you or like get you in trouble for something, that doesn't stop you from doing it. It just teaches you to be more careful and like sneaky about it. So it's pretty interesting how I came in here with the mindset of like, even though I thought I was outside of religion and I wasn't religious and I was open to everything, which I was open to most things, but my first few breakthroughs started happening when God was like, let go of that old mindset, that old wineskin. And it's like, what does that look like? Well, what do you mean let go of my old ways and my old understandings? And most of it was letting go of my understanding of the Father and his love and who he is. Because he doesn't want to punish us. He would rather us change through love than through getting hurt and falling into turmoil and tough times and depression, because that's not of him. There's nothing, he doesn't bring the bad into our lives. He doesn't cause the bad to happen. It's when we turn away from the Father and we start focusing on our own selves, our own problems in this world, we open the doors for problems to come. And so it's interesting how my mindset was like, oh, well, if something bad happened, God's trying to teach me a lesson. And I remember I'd always I've been in a decent amount of accidents and like other things, and each time I would have like, oh, it was because I was doing this or that, or I was about to spend money on that and God didn't want me to, so he did this. And it's like, it was so religious, because even if like, let's say I was going to spend money on something I shouldn't have, getting in an accident wouldn't stop me from spending money on that, because as soon as I get money, I'm going to go and buy that thing, and eventually that's what would happen. But it was like me trying to convince myself that God was trying to stop me, and like, I don't know, it was just very religious. But being here helped me open up and see God as a good Father, who he's loving, he's patient, he's kind. It talks about the fruits of the Spirit. That's literally the nature of God. And we talk about, oh, that's the fruits of the Spirit, but that's for us, because when we get born again, the Spirit lives in us, so the fruits become that. But when we get born again, what does that mean? We become a new creation, meaning we start taking on his nature, and that's why the fruits of the Spirit are that. If that's his nature, why would he be punishing and hurt us and all these things, And Jesus, he showed that side of the Father through, like, even with the prostitute where they wanted to stone her, and he was like, that's not who the Father is. The Father, he doesn't want to punish, he doesn't want to hurt, he just wants us to focus on him. So that was, I guess, my biggest takeaway, that was Father's love and understanding, like sonship.
Yeah, I like what you said in the beginning, how, like, when you would do something wrong, you'd ask God to punish you. Like, I didn't used to do the same thing, but when I was younger, because I wanted to help people so much, I would pray, like, God, like, give me their sickness, because I can handle it, and let them be healed, And, like, the enemy used all my words. Like, I would see, like, people with a broken leg. I'm like, God, give me a broken leg, and then heal theirs so they can, like, be with it, And I didn't understand, and, like, I would, like, literally curse myself and, like, cause all these problems upon myself because I didn't know any better, but I had a good heart, And, like, coming here, like, God's been, like, teaching me how to, like, renew my prayers, change my prayers. Like, don't let your prayers be religious, like the Pharisees, but actually, like, come to it with a good heart, good posture, and, like, renewed mindset with the prayer. Like, it's so crazy.
I also think, like, just kind of almost like maturing in your prayer, but at the same time, he does know your heart. So obviously he didn't give you a broken leg. Obviously he didn't give you sickness. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's just, like, comes from definitely kind of maturing in your walk and in your prayers. 100%. But one thing I definitely had to kind of learn was not only receiving from the Father, but I had to learn how to receive from others. Like, that was a huge thing he worked on me, because it's so easy, they're like, oh, like, receive it, but actually receiving something, whether it be from the Father, whether it be, freedom, or healing, or, whatever it is, it's so hard to do. And I didn't realize I had an issue with that. And so, like, with people, it was really hard for me to receive, because ever since I was younger, like, I I hated feeling like I owed someone something, you know, whether it be my time, whether it be, you know, something from me. Like, it would literally give me anxiety. And so it was crazy because that was something he started to kind of reveal to me, and I had to get comfortable. And the only way to do that is by him putting you in a situation where you have to receive, right? And so he would bring people into my life that either wanted to bless me or, you know, give me something or whatever. And I had to seriously learn, like, push aside that almost like hardened heart towards it or this stubbornness and be able to receive. And I think it's something I'm still learning to do. I think I have a tough time sometimes, honestly, more receiving from the Father than like anything else. And not only like in that aspect of like receiving in that way, but also receiving and being open to, like, when we were talking about talking to him in our secret place, not just talking, but also receiving what he's telling us, you know what I mean? Being open to where we sit and we truly listen, and we're like, okay, like, I'm open for you to speak into my life, you know what I mean? Or for you to like now talk to me, you know, and it sounds like such a like easy thing, you know, like, oh, just like sit there and listen, but it's so hard. Like, you literally, I like, sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, like, God, like, I'm so bored, like, I don't hear you, you know, but it's just being obedient and kind of like having that heart posture, and like literally through that and through patience, which my goodness is tough sometimes, like, that's where I learned to kind of receive from him and receive from others.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because, like, I also, like, struggle, like, even now, like, to receive people, like, when people give me gifts, I feel like I owe them something, so I'll, like, go and give them, like, an even bigger gift, you know? And they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. Like,
even when you don't even have, like, money for it, like,
yeah. And, like, when I was, like, even before Bible college, like, I'm, like, the person who gives the best gifts, and, like, in return, I never always, like, people never gave me gifts, you know? But I always made sure, like, people got the best gifts because that's what I would do for myself. But in reality, I never did that for myself. Like, I wouldn't even spend like $20 on myself, but on you, I'd be like, here's 120, you know, like, take it. But yeah, that's something the Father also was like teaching me. I remember last year, we were going to Kingdom Domain conference, and I was driving my friend's car, and I was speeding, and I was going like 20 over or something, and the cop pulls me over, and I'm in the front seat, like, I'm like praying, I'm like, okay, good Lord, I know you're my shepherd, I know you provide, I'm not gonna get this ticket, and I'm like so confident, I'm in the spirit, and then like he comes over, he hands me like a $200 ticket, and I was like, like, God, why? Like, why? I thought, like, I was so confident, you know? And then later that day, like, I had people, like, cash out me money because I told some people I got a ticket, and then, like, the whole ticket was paid for that day, you know? And God's like, see, even when you get into situations that you caused on your own, like, I'm still a good father, and I'm still going to provide for you, you know? And he's going to use people around you. So that's really
so
cool.
good. That's funny about the tickets, though, because I've experienced that this school year a few times. It's frustrating because all hell is going against you. In reality, it's literally just you not being wise and deciding to speed. I need to get myself a Prius. But another thing, you guys are talking about receiving yourselves. Something that even before KDC, because I mean, before KDC, there was like, I kept trying to serve God, but again, it was trying. I was striving towards it, and when you strive, you're trying to do it yourself, and it doesn't really work like that. But I went to a men's, I think it was like a men's encounter, basically just a day where a bunch of men get together and they get ministered to at this church in Orlando with my dad and a few of his friends. And I remember a lot of the things that they were talking about, I was kind of like, I know this, I know this, I know that. Then they got to like forgiveness, and I'm like, they're talking, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm the type of person, I forgive very easily. I don't hold grudges very long. Like, for me, it's like, if I get into an argument with somebody, it hurts me more to hold a grudge against them than to just forgive them. So they're talking on this, and I'm like, yeah, that's great for people who need to learn how to forgive. I know how to forgive. And at the end of it, they're like, all right, so, because they gave us each, like, I guess, a core group leader for the day. Our guy was like a young guy who's just starting out his walk, and like I could tell there was things that he was still struggling with, and I'm like, I mean, I hope he can minister to me, because I'm expecting like my leader to be like super spiritual guy, and I wasn't spiritual at the time either. But it's kind of funny how we view things like that. But God can use anybody. That's the main thing, regardless of where they are or what they're going through. But inside, I start getting, when they call out, like, come up to your core leader and act like they're the person you need to ask forgiveness for, and ask for forgiveness. And so I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, I have nobody to forgive, and I just keep feeling this feeling, you need to go up, you need to go up, you need to go up. And I'm like, what the heck? The only thing that comes to mind is like, before that, I let a few friends borrow like a lot of money, and they both told me like, "Oh, we'll give it back to you the next day," or like as soon as I get access to my bank account. And then that money never came, and I just felt like God was telling me to forgive them, and it was really hard because it was like a nice amount of money, yeah. And it's like that's money I worked for, and I know they like. Anyways, so I forgave them. I like stopped hitting them up about it, just whatever. Like, God bless you. But inside, there's still that feeling, like that hope, like I hope they give it back to me. I hope they hit me up. And so I was like, okay, so maybe that's what it is. So I came up to the leader. I was like, hey, so normally I forgive everybody, but I think the only thing I felt like I needed to come up here, and the only thing that I could think of was like, there was a few people I let borrow money and they never paid me back, and I forgave them, but there's still like almost this like I'm always thinking about the money, so I think it just might be letting go of that. And he's kind of like nodding his head like As soon as I finally like shut my mouth, he's like, actually I noticed this earlier, but what you need to do is forgive yourself. And I'm like like I literally couldn't talk, couldn't breathe for like 4 or 5 seconds. And the thing is, I didn't even realize, like, it's crazy how much we deceive ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we ask God for forgiveness, we forgive other people, but we never forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
So we never step into that freedom. And I'm standing there, and I don't know what's going on. I'm literally like, I can't breathe, I can't talk. I start like tearing up, and after like 5 or 10 seconds, I finally like start voicing like, I forgive you, Alex, and just like crying and like hugging him. And I'm like, that's crazy, because I didn't even, it never came to my mind or to my thoughts. It's like that I need to forgive myself. That wasn't even a possibility. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
And then when that happened, I was like, that's crazy, because that was inside of me and it was so hidden. And I was struggling with so much things and I didn't realize why. But it was because I hated myself for things that I did to people close to me, to people around me. And I felt like I was like just like a horrible person. But I never like felt like that on the daily. It was more like the way I viewed myself. So it wasn't something I was experiencing. It was just a way I viewed myself. And so everything that would happen, I would view it through this like lens of I'm a bad person, I'm a horrible person. That's why this is happening. That's why this is happening. When that happened, I was like, it like blew my mind. I wanted to go around and tell everybody like, you need to learn to forgive yourself, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it's because you just brought up like receiving, and I was like, for me, it immediately brought me to forgiving yourself. Like so much people, they understand that God forgave them. They forgive others, but because they never forgive themselves, they keep asking God for forgiveness for the same sins because they still feel guilty and condemned on it, which blows my mind.
Yeah, and that'll definitely hold you back from moving forward or growing. I've experienced that 100% because even if it's like a subconscious thing, like you didn't even realize it until someone brought it to your attention. But I think like that's also when like if you get close with the Lord to where like you're in a place where you're open to receiving from him and hearing what he has to say, and like don't always go looking for a man or a woman to like release a word over you or pray to you, because I'm telling you, if you get into that place, not saying that, not to complete this. Yeah,
I just, I can't look around.
I'm just saying, because like sometimes we'll think like if it happened for you that way, like, okay, like I'm always going to go to someone and they're going to release it. But if we can learn to just simply go and rest and sit alone with Jesus, he's going to end up revealing that. He's going to tell you like, hey, look, this is why you're not growing. You know, if you're like, I feel so stuck right now, and you sit and you just wait for him to respond, he'll reveal to you like, okay, this is what you're holding on to, this is what you need to move forward, you know. And other times it will be somebody, you know, to actually pray for you or to, you know, have an encounter, but don't let that be your source, you know what I mean?
And I feel like the scariest person to like encounter is yourself. Like I remember Dylan Long, I don't know if it was this year or last year, he came and he was like sharing like what he does, and he's like, spend 10 minutes in the secret place, no talking, no music, no nothing, just you, your thoughts, and God, you know, and see what starts coming up. You can't but not start thinking about a bunch of stuff, like, because when we're in our secret place, like, even when we're, like, worshiping and praying, like, I need to get gas, I need to go do this, I need to pay this bill, you know, and he's like, you need to learn how to quiet your mind, so start by every single day, 10 minutes in your secret place or outside of your secret place, and just stillness, quiet, you know, and then you're gonna see like oh, I still have this mindset, oh, I still have this, you know, and like, and you're confronting yourself, and it's so hard and scary because you don't even know what's inside of you. Like your whole years, like you've seen so many things on TV, music, people have said something, like somebody could say like a funny comment and it hurts you and you don't even know it hurts you until years later, you know, and it's like you encounter yourself by being still.
Yeah, that's very true. And something you said, like, it's out of my mind now, but it was, man, I completely just lost. Yes, please.
Okay, if you get it back though, that's insane. Like what you just said about like certain things, because our brain, right, we're constantly receiving. So we're receiving images anywhere we go. We're receiving sound literally all through the day, and it's processing through and it holds on to those things, but we're not consciously aware of it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's insane. One thing that I struggled with when I was talking about earlier, like when everybody was saying I love you, like I was like, this is so weird. Like this is not real. You know, I was very skeptical. I was like, what the heck? Like clearly, you know, I didn't know what love was.
Yeah.
And it's insane. I just received this is when I was in, it was 8th grade. Around then, I was in a relationship, you know, in a little 8th grade relationship, and we were breaking up at the time. And this guy, I remember he told me, and I didn't realize this seed that it planted in me, but his words were, "You will never be able to be loved by someone because your real dad never loved you." And at that time, like I didn't have a relationship with my biological father, you know, because of certain reasons, and that stuck with me, you know, that stayed with me. And so I truly believed, and I told myself, like, because you're so broken, because like, you know, you're unclean, like all this stuff, I was like, you're never going to be able to be loved. And so therefore I was never even open to being loved or able to receive it, all because of a word that was spoken into my life, and I received that word. And so even now I've learned you have to be so careful and cautious of who you allow to speak into your life, because words either bring creation or destruction, right? And so you can bring life or you can bring death, you know, and it's up to you to either receive that word or be like, you know what, no, I'm not receiving that. I don't care who you are or what your status is, you know, like be very aware of what you're allowing in and what you hold on to, because I spoke that over myself for years, and God had to break that.
Yeah, the same thing actually happened to me, but 9th grade freshman year. I remember I think I was in English class, and we were doing a project of what we wanted our future careers to be, and I really wanted to be FBI agent. And this guy that I liked, he like turned to me and he's like, "You could never be that. You're Russian." And I was so offended. Like, and at that point, like I started getting this mentality of like, oh, you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna do it better than you and prove you wrong. And I had a bad like perspective on men after that, you know. And so like I had like bad like disrespect for leadership, for people, everyone who told me I can't do something. Like I was just like, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna prove you wrong, you know. And God only this year, he was like, that's wrong, break it off. And like I didn't know the root like of the problem until like I was in my secret place and I was still, and like I was like for like probably 2-3 months I was struggling with this where like rebellion, you know. And he's like, this is the root problem. Like back in 9th grade, this guy that you like told you you can't do something, you know. And like I was like, dang, like that's so crazy.
Yeah, so I remember what I wanted to say. Yeah, thank you, Jesus. No, so you were talking about how forgot again. No, I'm kidding. How it's not about others praying for you, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to clarify. Yeah, it's not about that. I didn't have a relationship with God or with the Holy Spirit. So for me, it was I needed that somebody to push me in that direction. But when you do have a relationship, it's all about the secret place and learning to heal wounds that have been inflicted over the like past, I don't know, however many years you've been. Because I feel like most wounds start happening at a young age, like 5, 6, 7. But you were even saying a lot of times we don't realize we have wounds until somebody says something and you're like, wow, that hurt. Why did that hurt? But it was because we had a wound that we forgot about. We just, in a sense, like, you know, if you have a cut on your arm and you just stop using your arm, you're going to forget that you have a cut on your arm. But to start using the arm, you have to focus and get that wound looked at, healed, patched up. It's the same way in our lives when we get hurt by people saying things. If we don't sit down in our secret place with the Lord and just work through that and heal it, like, all right, God, like, why is this problem keep happening? Okay, that will help me work through that. Help me get over that. What they said, and help me see that that's not true. Help me see the truth about myself that contradicts the truth that I thought, or what I thought was true in my old belief. And when you do that, then it starts being where you start working through that. And even like you said, the scariest thing is facing yourself, because we know ourselves pretty well, but even then we don't know ourselves as well as we think, because we have so much issues we put away, we hid. And as soon as you start facing yourself, they start coming up, and it's all these issues where you're like, how do I work on this? How do I work on that? Well, I didn't even realize that. Why is that like that? And it can almost be overwhelming, but when God brings them up, it's in his right timing to where we can work on it and we can handle it, and we can grow and fix that issue. And a lot of times, like, it's even interesting how we always notice issues in other people but not in ourselves. And it's because we don't focus on ourselves in the secret place. So we're quick to judge issues other people have, and it's like, oh, why don't they fix that? Why don't they fix that? And something God was teaching me this year, like the first 3-4 months, I would always find issues in so much people. Like, why do they do this? Why do they do that? And I'm not saying I was perfect. I understood I was not perfect, but it's like, God, like, they have a relationship with you. Why don't they work on that? Why don't they fix that? Like, that's clearly affecting other people. It's not just themselves. And he started showing me, like, I have grace with you. You're supposed to have mercy and grace with them.
So good.
And it's like talks about by the measure you judge, that's the measure you will be judged. And so if you see somebody doing something wrong and you approach them like, you're doing this wrong, you need to fix that, you're such a bad person, that's what's going to happen to you. And when it does happen, you're going to be like, what the heck? That's so mean. Like, why is that happening, God? I thought I was doing good. But in reality, he kept telling me, like, just be patient with these people. When they come to me and want to work on it, I'll bring it up with them. And so there's this period of, like, almost grace where a lot of issues that you notice people had or you notice you have, unless you brought it up to God, like, God, I want to work on this, it wouldn't be brought up and it wouldn't be worked on. And then after that period where it was like, okay, now we have, like, 5-6 months of the school left, I started almost noticing how it was like things start coming up even though you didn't want them to come up, but it was because you started maturing in God. So now God's like, okay, well, it's time to work on this. Like, you're going to go home, and if you don't work on it now, you're not going to work on it at home.
Exactly.
And you'd see other people things are starting to come up, and you're like, if I would have pointed that out, they would have never worked on it. But because God brought it up, like, in a sense, that thing surfaced because of a situation. Now they're working on it, and they're doing it in a way, or God's doing it in a way where me calling them out on it wouldn't have, which kind of blew my mind, because I'm used to, like, my old understanding was, like, if you see an issue, call it out in the person, you're going to help them. But most of the time, we say we do it with love, but it's not with love. It's more like, oh, yeah, you're struggling with this. I've noticed it. And, like, almost a self-righteous position, which...
That's why I tell people, like, every time I call somebody out, that automatically gives you permission to call me out, you know, because it's not just a one-sided relationship. Like, I want you to be better, and I want you to want me to be better for myself too, you know. And so if I see something wrong in you, I'm gonna like, hey, Alex, you have this and this issue, and then, like, that gives you a relationship and opportunity for you to be
well, you are.
Yeah, exactly. No, but, like, with
And it
love.
turns into an argument.
Dude, that's so funny. Honestly, on the, like, other side too, one thing I learned is, like, we're so used to kind of how we grew up, right? So, for instance, like, I normalized a lot of things that I viewed, whether it be in relationships or friendships or, you know, things that happened to me or how I'd act. I normalized it because that's all I knew growing up. And so until I got around people who were, you know, had maybe a healthier home life or healthier areas in that area that I struggled in, I didn't realize that that was not normal, you know, and until I got around people who, like, because you should be around people who are striving for more, right? And who are, like, striving to be healthier and grow. And so until I got around people, I was like I normalized such unhealthy perspectives on, like, men or marriage or relationships or friendships, you know, because that's all I knew. And then I was like, whoa, like, this is so wrong, you know, like this is not right. And it was insane. Like, I do believe that was something I realized, but also I think God, he used it in a way where it was brought to my, like, perspective and my attention. And then he was like, okay, now we're going to work on this, you know, and he kind of showed me, like, he had to redefine that for me, you know, and it was through those people who have been walking in that, like, healthy lifestyle longer than me, to kind of show me, like, how you walk into that, you know. But yeah, I realized so much. I was like, wow, like, I normalized this. Like, I remember certain things that happened to me, like, I would talk about them, like, oh, whatever, you know, like I didn't even think it was that bad. And then some people were like, yo,
Yeah.
like are you good? And I'm like, yeah, like what do you mean? Like, you know, like just this happened, and like I didn't even realize like, oh wow, like that actually is the reason that I'm maybe so standoffish, you know? Like this is the reason I have these certain issues, is because like that's a big trauma. Like you need to work through this, you know? Like some people are like, yo, like you should probably like talk about that, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh really? Like I just had no idea.
Yeah, no, that's wild. But to wrap it up, last question. Let's answer quickly. If you had one piece of advice to give to a new KDC student coming in, or somebody thinking about joining KDC, what would you give them?
Don't waste your time. And that's like such a broad thing, but I remember last year, because I knew I was going to do second year, or I knew I was going to stay in the ministry, I was like, oh, I don't really want to work on this right now. Next year I'll work on it.
Wow.
You know, I'll let God deal with it like later, you know, but instead, like, let God deal with it now. Like, if he's bringing it to your attention right now, let it deal with it now, because in the future, you don't know where you're going to be. You don't actually know if you're going to stay for second year or third year or wherever else. Like, if God wants you to deal with it now, then deal with it now, because what he has planned for you later, like, it's even better, you know, and he needs you to be done with this, you know?
That's so good. That's so good.
And you?
For me, I would honestly say kind of, I guess, my biggest, not regret, but the thing I wish I did was get plugged in quickly. Because I noticed a lot of the people that, in a sense, not were more successful, but got around a good group of people, or in the ministry or in the school, were people that immediately went out and made connections. Not even get plugged into the ministry, but make connections, make friends, step out, be vulnerable, try to get to know people, even get plugged into the ministry, into like, if you're thinking about going into like media track or admin track or business track, during lunch, go and just spend some time in the admin office or with the director of admin, or in the business office with Pastor Serge, or in media with Lyocha. Just, you know, step out there and kind of show that you're willing to connect, and you're not just there to spend your time and get better. But a lot of the people that didn't plug in and show the effort later on, I feel like they almost me too. I feel like later on,
like I'm taking this advice now.
Why am I shouldn't be saying they, because I was a part of it too. I feel like I didn't get plugged in, and I tried to do the least, and my attitude was like, if it doesn't benefit me, why would I do it? But in reality, it's, if you start serving right away, you get plugged in, and there's a lot more opportunities for growth, and even just for knowledge, getting plugged in with these people. Then when, let's say, media tracks do come around and you do decide to go to media or admin, the person already knows you and they know where to plug you in. And instead of like, all right, first learn and then we'll decide, it's like, all right, I know that this is what you're interested in, get plugged in with this person. And instead of learning it at the end of the year, like for me, I only started learning what I was interested in media track towards the end of the year. I would have gotten into it earlier, and now it would have already been easier, versus now I'm trying to figure it out. We have 1 week left. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And if I would have done it earlier, it would have been a lot easier. So that's my thing. Just make connections, be vulnerable.
All right. My thing, kind of two things. I would say don't come in with a plan B.
So good.
Because then you're not going to be fully engaged. I definitely did that. I didn't fully kind of leave everything. I came in with a plan B. And so that kept me not, I think, fully dived into where I could have received as much as I could have, you know, because I had this in the back of my mind. So don't come in with a plan B, and also come in and like, I just want to encourage y'all, because trust me, I was like not in the best place. Like, be raw, be who you are. Like, if you come in broken, come in broken. You know, if you come in still struggling with something, come in like that, because honestly, it's going to save you time from like putting on this, you know, persona. Exactly. Putting on this outside layer of like, oh, I'm good. You know, I don't struggle with this. And it's going to take a lot longer for you to uproot and grow from it, rather than you just coming in simply as you are and being like, look at this, who I am. Like, you know, it's just, it allows not only others to kind of help and move in your life, but also the Lord to come in and be like, you know, start removing those things and working with you. So don't come in with a plan B, and just come in honestly, like wherever you're at in your life.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because honestly, I feel like some of the people who have had the biggest breakthroughs or growths, like with some of my friends, were people that literally the day before they were out drinking at a
Yeah.
bar, and I'm not saying do that. Don't do that. That's
Well,
not
that's
what I'm saying.
wrong. No.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like they, in a sense, yes, they might have been the wrong decision, but at the same time, they still decided to come. I'm sure in the moment they were debating, do I even want to go? Should I even go after all this? But then they made a decision to go, and I saw, like, you could see the day they came in versus a week, 2, 3 later, there's such growth and progression versus like me, I came in where like I knew I was going to Bible college, so I spent like all this time trying to prepare and trying to get holy.
Super spiritual.
Yeah, I get super spiritual, and I come here and I'm like, I was preparing in the wrong way. Like my understanding was completely wrong. Now I gotta like backtrack, and it was just like, which it's not bad to prepare beforehand, but at the same time, it's like my point is, it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in a good place or a
Yeah.
bad place. If you have a desire to change and grow and understand kingdom principles, kingdom mindset, how to walk in freedom, and not only walk in freedom, but spread freedom to other people around you and the people you love, this is the place for you. So,
Yeah.
And another thing I would add, like, when you come in, don't come in with a bunch of like, oh, I already know so many things, this and that,
Yeah.
because like for second year, that's how I came in. I came in like, oh, I know everything. I'm gonna be relearning the same thing, and it was honestly the hardest like 4 months of my life, or not my life, but like of the school year, where I was like, I'm not growing, I'm not learning new things, this and that. But in reality, I just closed my heart off to being taught. You know,
Wow.
even though it's the same thing with his breath, he refreshes everything. You know, it's new, and there's so
Yeah.
many things that I missed last year that I thought like I know everything. You know,
Yeah.
but in reality, like you know nothing. And even like like growing with God. Like the more you know him, the less you actually understand you know him. You're like, whoa, there's actually so much more depth to
Yeah.
you that like I don't even know anything at all, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what it comes down to, definitely, like, we're not a rehab center.
Yeah.
You know, don't come if you're still desiring to live in those old ways, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you are like living like that, that's like, not that that's okay, but like it's okay if you just have the desire. All you need is the desire to grow, the desire to change. Of like, you know what, like I do want to change, and that's all you need. You know, then come.
Yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully that gave you guys a clearer idea of what KDC is like, what you go through there. If you guys do have any questions about KDC or any concerns, or even just you guys want us to speak on something, comment below. We'll do our best to answer you guys' questions, and if the link will be below to sign up and register. So we can't wait to see you guys here in September.